Hello and welcome to episode 90 of the Dragons Are Real podcast. I was just thinking the other day, do you know, it's over 12 months since I've done any in-person gaming. The last game I had was March 2020 at the Concrete Cow Con in Milton Keynes, and that was playing with Colin Green from the Spike Pick podcast and his brother Darren Green, also known as RFED. And this pandemic has really hit in-person games. But one positive that is to come out of the pandemic, if you can have a positive, is that there is much more online gaming now. And all my in-face group, I've got them all online gaming, and we have kept to our schedule of every Thursday night for the last 13 months, so we've not missed a game. And virtual tabletops have also been developing rapidly over the last 12 months. I'll say most of them. Roll20 seems to be going at a snail's pace, but there's nothing new there. But certainly ones like Fantasy Grounds and Foundry are really sort of pushing forward. And new ones are appearing all the time trying to fill in those gaps. And I covered a few of these virtual tabletops on the YouTube channel. But this week there has been some more developments. TaleSpire, a 3D virtual tabletop, has now seems to be open for all. It's a little bit steep at $25 per person. Each person has to buy it, and if, like me, you've got a group that doesn't want to put their hands in their pockets, that might be a tough sale without trying it out, but it looks cool, 3D. Another one recently released is called Fairy App. Now, Fairy was originally designed for the Fate system, and it sort of covers Fate really well with theatre of the mind, index cards aspects. But the owner of the site has now opened it up so that you can play any virtual tabletop in his app, and it's free to use, and you can design a custom character sheet. You can have roles from the character sheet. You can set up your skills, your attributes, anything you want on it. You can set it up with your hit points, resources, and all that sort of stuff. It still is designed for theatre of the mind, so if you use grid tables, then it's not for you. Doesn't have audio, then you still have to use Discord, Zoom, or whatever you want. The maps are designed for using aspects from Fate, but he ensures the people that he's going to improve on this. But you can do quick maps using some drawing tools. So I'll leave a link in the show notes for that one. That's Fairy App, which is fairy.app. And the only other one, I know I've mentioned this one before, is Mythic Table are now running a Kickstarter. So Mythic Table is a non-profit open source virtual tabletop, and they are now looking for some funding to push their development forward. They are looking for £14,000 and they're currently at £8,500. So if you're interested in sending some money to Mythic to help push the volunteers along, and I must confess up front, I have done a little bit of volunteer work for them, nothing paid, so I have got a slight interest in this one. But if you want to throw some money their way to help them, then I'll leave a link to that in the show notes as well. And talking of Kickstarters, you may already noticed I've started a new Kickstarter series. Every Wednesday, simultaneously on YouTube and audio, I will look at the newest RPG Kickstarters and ones that are ending in the next 7 days. So if you are interested in what's happening on the Kickstarter news, then check out my podcast every Wednesday. I'm probably going to run it for a month and see what the feedback's like, and is it of use to anyone, or is it too much work? And here's a call in from Jason.
Hey Pete, Jason here. Great review of Cepheus. Great rundown of Traveler and the rules and, all the variants of Cepheus there. I look forward to your next episode. Take care.
Well, Jason, you asked for it. So here we go. Let's get on to the main subject. So when looking at playing Sword and Sorcery RPGs, there's usually one of two systems in the main that most people go to. Those are your D20 systems, such as D&D Pathfinder, and D100 when you're RuneQuest style. And I know there are several other mini-systems out there like Fantasy Age and what have you, but a lot of those are niche and have small followings. The big two are D20 and D100 by a long shot. But another system that I've often liked for fantasy is the 2D6 system. And one of these has been championing it for a long time is Barbarians of Lemuria. This was originally released in 2004 on the 1000 Monkeys, 1000 Typewriters website and was released as a free PDF. It is based on Lynn Carter's Thongal novels, which were later removed from the free version, still in the free version, but were later removed from the printed versions due to copyright reasons. And the Thongal novels are a bit of a clone of Conan the Barbarian. And just like Black the Barbarian by John Jakes, or Clonans as I like to call them. So Barbarians of Lemuria comes in several editions, and the one that I'm going to be looking at is the Legendary Edition, and there is also a Mythic Edition as well, but this one will be covering the Legendary Edition, which is 112 pages. Its hardback is $28, but you can also get it in PDF as well. Up against Barbarians of Lemuria today, we have Sword of Cepheus at 131 pages. This is by Omer Golan Joel of Stellargamma Publishing. It's £7 for the PDF or £15 in softback. This was released in 2020 and is based on his Cepheus Light and Cepheus Quantum engines. Also in the running from the same publisher is Barbaric at 50 pages, which is based on Cepheus Quantum. And this is £2.99 in paperback. And finally, I'm going to go really lightweight here. Again, by the same publisher and same author, it's Quantum Sorcery by Omar. This is 2 pages of A4 and is completely free from drive-through. So I'm going to compare each of these 4 systems in several areas, and we'll start off with setting. Barbarians of Lemuria has its own setting called Lemuria, and this is heavy inspiration from the Conan, Thonga and Brack books. Lemuria is a post-apocalyptic world of 500,000 years into the future, but is unrecognisable to anyone today. The world has returned to an almost prehistoric state. It's a land of humid steaming jungles, vast untamed wildernesses, horror-filled swamplands and hot, dry deserts. There are massive man-eating beasts which roam the unexplored regions, from sea serpents to dinosaurs. Yet there are still sprawling cities teeming with merchants and bazaars, great palaces, temples and towers. Dotted around are ancient ruins of temples, cities, tombs and palaces. So that's Barbarians of Lemuria. Swords of Cepheus, Quantum Sorcery and Barbaric have no included setting. So let's have a look at the main mechanics. With Barbarians of Lemuria, you roll 2d6 and you add your relevant attribute. If you are in combat, you add your combat modifier. If it's a non-combat situation, you add any relevant career modifier. If the result is 9 or higher, it's a pass. 8 or less is a fail. And these rolls are modified +1 to -6 depending on the difficulty of the task. Double 1 is always an auto-fail and double 6 is always an auto-success. In Swords of Cepheus, you roll 2d6 and you add an attribute and a skill modifier. And the target is set by the GM from anywhere from 4+ for routine to 12+ for formidable. Again, double 1 is auto-fail and double 6 is auto-success. When we get to Barbaric, it's roll 2d6 and add your skill modifiers. If you don't have a relevant skill, it's -1. The target is the same as Sword of Cepheus. It's 4+ to 12+, depending on what the GM sets. And again, double 1 is auto-fail, double 6 is auto-success. And Quantum Sorcery is the same as Barbaric with 2d6, add skill modifiers, but if you don't have a relevant skill, it's -3 to your dice modifier, and there is no auto-fail or auto-success. So how do we create characters in each of these systems? Starting off with Barbarians of Lemuria, you have 4 attributes: strength, agility, mind and appeal, and you divide 4 points into them, with any one having a maximum of 3 in one attribute. There are 4 combat abilities: brawl, melee, range and defense, and again you divide 4 points amongst them. Then you choose 4 careers, and there are 26 careers, and some of them have got alternative names. So you've got an alchemist or artificer, assassin or slayer, barbarian, savage. You get the idea. And you pick 4 of those careers and you divide 4 points in them, with a minimum of 0 in any one career and a maximum of 3. Then you pick a birthplace on the world of Lemuria, which gives you a boon, and boons are a bit like feats or abilities. If you pick a floor, then you get a second boon, And flaws give you disadvantages to rolls, which I'll come to in a little bit. Then you have your lifeblood, which is your hit points, and that is 10 plus your strength, and you get 5 hero points, and you may spend 2 of those hero points to buy additional boons. In Sword of Cepheus, you have 6 attributes: strength, dexterity, endurance, intelligence, education, and social standing. And you roll 2d6 for each of those attributes, which gives you a score, and based on those scores, you have a dice modifier, which is from -2 to +6. You gain a single skill depending on your background. You start at age 14, then choose a career. You roll to qualify for that career, and if you fail, you become a commoner, a noble, or a vagabond. You gain skills, 6 skills, each at 0, and then you roll to survive that career, and if you fail, you die in character creation. Then you roll once on one of the skill tables to get your skills, and then roll to advance a rank. If you fail that roll, you don't get promoted and stay as the rank you are. You increase your age, and then you roll for random events on the table, which adds to your background. And then you roll to re-enlist for the next term. If you fail that, your career ends. And you can choose to muster out at any point. Like in the Cepheus engine before it, which I reviewed 2 episodes ago, there's a bit of a mini-game going on here. In Sword of Cepheus, there are 12 careers, there are 28 skills, and traits to gain from the careers, which a trait gives you advantage to the rules, and advantage in the 2d6 system is you roll 3 dice, keep the highest 2, and disadvantage is roll 3 dice, keep the lowest 2. In Barbaric, there are only 2 attributes: endurance and lifeblood. Endurance is resolved by 2d6, and lifeblood you roll 4d6, adding the scores together. Then you distribute 5 points between 7 skills, and these 7 skills are combat, craft, law, physical, social, sorcery, and stealth. And you can put a maximum of 3 points in any one skill. Then you pick one trait, of which there are 30 to choose from, and these mainly give you advantage in rolls. If you have a high combat skill, instead of picking a normal trait, you may pick a combat trait instead. And these give you such flavour as shield, bash, 2 weapon fighting, that sort of thing. You get food and water for 3 days, a backpack, a water skin, knife, 2d6, 10 gold pieces, and you purchase items. If you have sorcery skill, you pick 2 spells and 2 random spells, and there are fantasy races, but they give you more flavour than anything else. Quantum sorcery, which is the mini system, again, you have 2 attributes, endurance and lifeblood. You have 2 dice for your endurance and roll 4 dice for your lifeblood. And you have 6 skills: combat, law, physical, practical, social, and sorcery. And you divide 5 points between those 6 skills with a maximum of 3 in any skill. And then you roll 5d6 for your gold. And if you have sorcery, you can either roll or pick your spells. Now we move on to combat. In Barbarians of Lemuria, you roll 1 dice and you add your agility score for your initiative. There is no movement or grid combat, it's all theatre of the mind. In a combat roll, you add your combat modifier, you never add your career to your roll. Your opponent's defense is added to the difficulty number. And the damage is determined by the type of your dice plus your strength, minus the armour wearing from the target. And that score is deducted from their lifeblood. Weapons in the norm do between d6 and d6 plus 3 damage, and armour is in the range of 1 to 5. The hero points can be spent to reroll dice to increase your success to a mighty success or a mighty success to a legendary success. You can defy death, shake off wounds, narrative control, so they're a bit like fate points or bennies. If you get a mighty success, you do maximum damage plus d6, and a legendary success, you do maximum damage plus 6 plus a d6. In Sword of Cepheus, if there is a surprise, then you get a free round against your opponent. Otherwise, initiative is 2 dice plus your tactic skill. On your turn, you get 2 actions. You can attack, move, and other, and may do double. So you might do 2 moves, 2 attacks. You roll to hit, and your target to hit is 8 plus in melee, 8 plus in effective range, or 10 plus in long range. Then you roll your damage and subtract the target's armour. Weapons do between 1 and 4 dice damage, and armour is between 3 to 10 points. Damage comes off your endurance and then your strength and dexterity. In Barbaric, you roll for surprise to see if there's a free round. Initiative is 2 dice plus your combat skill. You move 10 metres and attack, or move 20 metres. Again, rolling to hit is 8 plus in melee or effective range, or 10 plus at long range. And you subtract half the target's combat dice modifier. A natural 12 is critical, or if you're exceeded by 6 plus of the score, which causes maximum damage, plus you roll on the critical hits table. Weapons do 1 to 4 dice of damage, and armour, which is subtracted from the damage roll, is 2 to 8 points. Damage comes off endurance first, and then your lifeblood. When you get to 0, you do a death save. Hero points, you get hero points, 2 per player, and a pool of 1 per player, and you can spend these to reroll or require NPCs to reroll, and reroll mortal wounds or sorcery mishaps. In Quantum Sorcery, there is no initiative. All movement and attacks are simultaneous. You move 10 meters and attack, or move 20 meters. Again, it's 8 plus to hit in melee and effective range, and 10 plus outside of effective range. You roll 2d6 at your combat skill, and subtract the target's combat skill. Damage from weapons is 1 to 4 dice, and comes off your endurance, otherwise you start taking points off your lifeblood. Advancement. In Barbarians of Lemuria, after each adventure, the PC describes how they waste their fortune. Because you're a barbarian, you don't keep it. And then you get 2 adventure points. And you can save these up and spend them to increase attributes, combat abilities, improve your careers, and buy off floors or buy new boons. In Swords of Cepheus, you gain 1 to 2 XP per adventure, and you spend these to increase your skills at 1 level at a time. Barbaric, you get 1 XP per adventure, and every 5 XP you gain a rank. You start at experience and end up at legendary. And with these points you can choose a new trait, add plus 3 to your endurance, or 1 dice to your lifeblood, or plus 1 to the skill. And in Quantum Sorcery, there is no advancement at all. Next we come to spells, and this is a big difference between these systems. Barbarians of Lemuria has a great magic system. You start with arcane power equal to 10 plus your magician rank, and magic in this game is completely free form. You describe what you want to do, and you and the GM work out its level, the effect, the target area, and all such things. There are 4 levels to magic: cantrips, which are minor effects, brief illusions; first level, with anyone with the right training could do; second are things that are impossible for a normal person to do, and third magnitude spells are natural disasters or curses. And it costs you arcane power to cast these spells, so 1 or 2 points for a cantrip, 5 points for a first level spell, 10 points for a second level spell, and 15 points for a third level spell. You can reduce these by up to 4 to 5 points, by reducing the effect, by affecting a smaller area, by taking longer to do it, and each one of these requirements that you meet will lower the target number. So the spells here are only limited by your imagination. In Sword of Cepheus, you start with 2 spells per point in your sorcery score, and anyone may use spells, but obviously an unskilled person using a spell is at -3 dice modifier. Spells are divided into 6 circles of power, which determine their difficulty between 7 and 12. And each circle is broken into white, grey and black magic, and each of these areas, the grey, black and white, has 6 spells, for a total of 108 spells. If you roll a double 1, critical fail, then you roll on a critical fail table, which is a D66 table, which gives you results like you open a portal to a different dimension, you start corrupting, you gain mutation, or you may have to roll to save versus dying. In Barbaric, if you have the sorcery skill, you pick 2 spells and get 2 spells at random. You roll 2 dice, and each spell has a fixed target number. A double 1 is a critical roll on the table, and a D66 table of spells, which are 1-line descriptions, so it's very simple spells. And in Quantum Sorcery, you roll 2d6 plus your sorcery skill, -3 dice if you don't have that skill, and all spells have 8 plus to cast. A natural 2 is a possible mishap, and you roll again, and if you get a second fail, you roll on the mishap table. And Quantum Sorcery has 11 spells. Now we come up to the bestiary or the monster manual. So Barbarians of Lemuria has a comprehensive list of creatures, but they are not all usually fantasy types. They are all exotic and unique types for the world of Lemuria. You have a table to create your own types of monsters based on their size, their average damage, lifeblood and movement. And each of these creatures has a strength and agility score, mind, attack, defense, protection, lifeblood, plus their boons and flaws. Sword of Cepheus has a list of traditional monsters, and each of these monsters is represented by the Universal Persona Profile, or UPP, where each of the 6 abilities is represented by a number. And then you have skills, attacks, morale, and special traits. Barbaric has a list of generic fantasy creatures, which is 2 to 3 lines of text. It has a description and then records their endurance and lifeblood scores, attack, armour, damage, and skills, and has some common NPCs. And Quantum Sorcery has 7, yes that's right, 7 fantasy monsters. Each of those 7 has an endurance and lifeblood, their move, their armour, their damage skills. So that is a roundup of the 4 systems, and each does something in a different way. So what is my preferred? Quantum Sorcery is okay as a one-shot, so if you want to keep it as your bag, but more than a one-shot, it's very light and it's going to require a bit of work from the GM. If you want a system like Traveller, where you've got a rich and deep background, then Swords of Cepheus is the way to go. The character creation system is really thick and juicy. Otherwise, it's a toss-up, in my view, between Barbarians of Lemuria and Barbaric. So which of these will I choose? Well, it depends what you want. If you want a nice spell system, then Barbarians of Lemuria. But you need players that have got a bit of imagination and to buy into that. But if you have, then oh boy, these spells in that can be really creative by the players. However, if you want something with just a list of spells, then Barbaric is definitely the way to go. Both of them do things that I like in games. They keep the dice modifiers down to a low. Some people really enjoy the career system in Barbarians of Lemuria, when if you've got a relevant career, then you're adding that to your dice roll. So it gives you a bit more scope as opposed to skills. But as I said with Barbaric, it's got a set number of skills. So you're not really going through pages and pages of skills to get what you want. It all comes down to your own personal taste. For me personally, I quite like Barbaric. It's only 50 pages, A5 booklet. I can just slip it in there straight away. But I know I have played Barbarians of Lemuria, and again, that is a great game. They are both very light games, so there is a lot of GM fiat in there. But I find that the 2D6 fantasy systems, they can really zip along nicely. So that is my review of 2D6 Fantasy. So that's all for this episode. If you want any more information, remember to check out the website at petejones.newcities.org. The blog is dragonsonrealpodcast.tumblr.com. If you want to get in touch, you can leave me a voicemail via the Anchor app, or you can email me at dragonsonrealpodcast@pm.me. Thank you all for listening. I'll catch you all on the flip side.